Okay, good morning everyone and welcome. My name is Marcin Kubica and I lead one of data and analytics unit at Clouds on Mars, and I'll be your moderator today. With me, Wojciech Pastyrczyk, ESG subject matter expert with over 80 assurance assessments, previously with PwC and Sustain Analytics. Wojciech, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Marcin. Hello, everyone. I'm very glad to be here and to share some of my experience from ESG assurance and system implementation projects.
Very good. So what's in plate? What is in our agenda today? Our topic is what are companies really looking for in ESG systems, and we'll start with a short refresher on ESG and why technology is becoming essential. Then we'll look at what types of organizations are searching for ESG systems and the key business drivers behind adoption of such systems. And we will also cover the most common client questions and expectations. And we will finish with some closing thoughts, some closing reflections, and also some information about our future webinars. So let's start at the very beginning. ESG, environmental social governance. This abbreviation, those words are everywhere these days, but I'd like to ask you, Wojciech, why do systems and technology play such an important role in this area?
Yeah, thanks for that question. One more thing, in the meantime, if some questions will appear, please put it in the Q&A, and with the last part, we will try to answer your questions. And referring to your question about ESG, that's a very good starting point, because actually ESG in essence is about measuring and managing how organization impact the environment, social matters, and how they governed. I think that everyone knows a little bit about it, but the moment we start measuring, we enter the world of data, a really big world of data. And today's ESG challenges are highly data-driven. We have regulations like CSRD in Europe, stakeholders' demands from investors or clients, or even employee expectations. And all of this means that company needs to collect and manage and report ESG data, not only in consistent way, but also in auditable way. It is a real big challenge. When actually ESG systems, I think, play a very important role. When there's only a little bit of ESG data, you can still manage it manually. But the moment you scale it up, whether because of regulation or business complexity, technology become not just helpful, but I think so that very essential.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And when I think of ESG data, I imagine, and I also know from the experience working with various customers, how diverse this data set is. And for example, calculating a company's carbon footprint is not just one number. You need several data points to crunch and use in calculation. You need energy bills, you need transportation data, you need information from suppliers. Sometimes production processes data are also needed. And in some companies, this data set is relatively small, but there are giants in the market, and the data set in those companies is really overwhelming.
Yeah, indeed. And it's not just about the size of the company that matters. We can have a really small company, but actually we will have a lot of production data that will also be very important when it comes to carbon footprint calculations. It also depends on the type of business, its operations, its stakeholders, and of course a regulation that apply. A service company has a very different ESG data challenges compared to a global manufacturer with a large supply chain.
All right, so let's talk about it a little bit more. What type of companies are actually looking for ESG systems, and why do they want to engage in this research for this kind of systems?
Yeah, actually, we can identify a few groups, and I will also divide it into some categories. So first of all, we have like large enterprises that are directly under regulatory requirements. For example, in Europe, that means CSRD, EU taxonomy, or SFDR, a lot of abbreviations. And these organizations are aware of the huge amount of ESG data that they have to handle, and they know that they need to manage it in a structured way. But there is also companies that aren't regulated directly, that feel that pressure from their clients. I'm thinking about tier one suppliers. For example, if your client is a large multinational enterprise that needs to report on Scope 3 emissions. Scope 3 emissions mean the emissions from supply chain. You, as a supplier, need to provide a specific carbon data. For example, Scope 1 and 2. If you don't do it, actually you risk losing that client.
And that's an interesting point, because it shows that sometimes it's not the regulator that pushes companies to think about ESG, but these are the clients, and clients enforces ESG standards, right?
Yeah, exactly. So imagine a global manufacturer required by CSRD to disclose its Scope 3 emissions. And it goes to its supplier and asks for direct and indirect emissions data. So it is Scope 1 and 2. A small supplier may be not even aware of ESG reporting before, and now suddenly needs to collect and calculate that data. So it will be for him a real challenge, and they might not need a big ESG platform as, for example, their client, but they must at least build a process for data collection, for carbon footprint calculations, ideally with some automations, because actually they will not have some capacity, for example, with employees to do that. Otherwise, they risk losing business.
Mm-hmm. And this becomes a big deal. It shows how ESG requirements cascade down to the supply chain, and even smaller companies that are not falling under those regulations, they may feel this pressure that may need to start thinking about ESG systems, because someone else may ask for those reports, for this data.
Yeah, exactly. And I see also the third group, a growth stage companies preparing for an IPO or for funding rounds. And investors today are very focused on ESG performance, and having reliable ESG data, ideally managed in a system, can make a company much more attractive to investors. Actually, I was also back in years working for Sustainalytics, and we developed an ESG index, and we try to put a scoring into some companies, actually for the purpose of investors. Investors were looking for some outliers of ESG domain to actually invest funding there.
But there is one more group, right?
Yeah, there is, and I know that we really like this group of companies. And the fourth group are organizations that see ESG as a strategic differentiator. For them, it's not just about compliance, it's about positioning themselves as a forward-looking, resilient, and sustainable business. And they want ESG systems to help them prove to the market that they are serious about sustainability. I often say that there are some companies that want to have an ESG written in their company DNA, and I think it is a good sentence to conclude this.
Yeah, that's correct. Recently, I had a chance to speak with some companies that or people who work with companies in Northern Europe and in Western Europe, and they highlight this fact that in those mature markets, there are more and more companies who want to keep the ESG as a part of their DNA, regardless of the regulations. They just want to make ESG a strategic differentiator, as you said. Okay, so we've talked about the types of companies. Now we want to go a little bit deeper. Wojtek, if you can elaborate on the main business drivers behind ESG systems adoption.
Yeah, so similar, I would also break down it to main categories. So first category is regulatory compliance, and that's obvious, but it's also unavoidable. In Europe, we have CSRD that requires very detailed, auditable ESG disclosures. And without a system managing this level of detail is actually nearly impossible. I know that some companies are trying to do it without the systems, but then they have to, they need to have a really big ESG teams and be reliant on some external ESG consultancy. Second one is risk management. ESG risks are non-financial, but very, very real. I'm thinking about the reputational risks, supply chain risks, climate-related risks. And we also implement some systems that help identify, measure, and monitor those risks. The third one is something that I also mention when I talk about the IPO, the investor relations. So the third one is investor relations and ESG ratings. So investors increasingly look at ESG ratings when making decisions. So companies with strong ESG data, positioning very high with in ESG index, have companies that have, for example, a really nice ESG scoring and transparent systems have also an advantage here. And this fourth group, I think that's quite interesting because actually we had some implementation for that as well, is operational efficiency. So systems can automate data collection, track energy use, track carbon emissions, or even support optimization projects.
I'd like to come back to the first element that you mentioned, because that was quite interesting point about this regulatory compliance and the official ESG disclosures. It's a serious thing, right? Also, it shows that companies, they need to meet a challenge of perhaps changing their disclosures after some additional data may appear in the system. So that's something that you don't want to do manually. You want to have a system that help you that. Sure. The topic of restatements, this can be a topic for another webinar. Who knows, maybe we will organize one. But indeed, it's a part of the ESG reporting topic. And the fourth element that you mentioned, the operational efficiency, because it shows that when we think about the ESG and when we think about the carbon emission and things that are driving this carbon emission, these are the elements that are that go beyond compliance. It's about the optimization of various processes, including production process. Can you elaborate more?
Yeah. More and more companies want ESG systems to help them make decisions, not just to report ESG. But of course, reporting ESG is very important from the perspective of regulatory. But let me share an example. One client had already calculated their product's carbon footprint. They knew exactly how much carbon each packaging material contribute, and the system allowed them to run what-if analysis. So what if they replace plastic with recycled paper? What happens to the emission? What happens to the cost? And that ability to simulate scenarios helped them make a strategic choice. And that's the next level of ESG systems. They become decision-making platforms.
Yeah, that's right. I remember this project. It's interesting that you can create using those underlying data, you can create a mechanism that addresses both the ESG KPIs, but also the cost of manufacturing of those products. So I may say that it's quite similar to financial planning systems. They help CFO make educated decisions. And in the same way, ESG systems can help sustainability leaders, but also chief financial officers and the boards make informed strategic decisions, not only related to ESG KPIs, but also to some financial KPIs.
Yeah. ESG data, when managed well, is not only about compliance, but also about shaping business strategy. So it's really interesting, this operational efficiency and how ESG data how ESG systems can support it. But what I would like to also mention when it comes to what companies are looking for ESG in ESG systems is auditability. Sometimes a company already has a process and even some systems in place, but they are not really sure if these are sufficient to ensure auditability. In fact, one of the main reasons companies actually looking for ESG platforms is precisely to strengthen that audit trail. And I will also give an example. So systems in a way replace humans, unfortunately, maybe. And in every assurance engagement, I saw that human makes mistakes. And the most common errors come from manual data handling. So imagine an employee recording energy meter readings for KPIs such as energy consumption. So with just one slip of the finger, the decimal point are moving or an extra zero is added. So the data suddenly shows energy consumption 10 times higher than reality. And ESG systems help to prevent it into two, I see right now, two key ways. So first of all, anomaly detection. So automatically flagging numbers that look unusual. Second, automation. So pulling data directly from IoT meters instead of relying on manual entry. So companies that have already gone through some ESG assurance or even other types of audits know how painful bad data can be. And for them, systems are not just about efficiency, but about improving their quality and reliability of their data, and of course of their ESG reporting as an effect of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are two interesting points that you mentioned in your words. The first one is the system and the human errors. None of us would like to receive a energy bill with a error. We don't want to go through this hassle of dealing with the energy company and discuss why there is such a high number. So it's also at the company level. When they report KPIs related to the ESG or even financial KPIs, they want to have accurate data. But you also mentioned the anomaly detection. That's an interesting point because the modern data platforms, they offer those building blocks that when they are used skillfully, they can really help in anomaly detection. There can be implementation of even self-healing data. For example, if some data is missing, there are ways to automatically correct those gaps. And in other cases, when there is an anomaly or the surprisingly high or low number, there can be an automatic process of informing right people that something is going on and they need to take a closer look and react. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the practical side. So when companies start thinking about ESG systems, what are the most common questions that you hear from clients?
Yeah, there are many important questions, but the main ones revolve around efficiency and usability. So today on our webinar, I see that we have a lot of experts and they know a little bit about materiality assessment. And the top question from companies is, where should we begin? And actually, a strong approach is to conduct a materiality assessment to pinpoint which data matters most for your businesses and stakeholders. And actually, it is also a very important topic when it comes to CSRD regulation, because actually materiality assessment is necessary to conduct when we think about the alignment with these regulations. But actually, materiality assessment is really good to do also in case of ESG systems, to ensure that teams focus on the right metrics rather than getting overwhelmed with irrelevant data. The next questions that often appear is, how can we automate data collection? Something also, and we will touch a little bit upon that as well, how to connect systems, for example, when we have ERP or some BI tools with ESG systems that we want to implement. Can the system help us with managing the targets and track the decarbonization projects? Does the system come with pre-built modules and emission factors, or do we need to configure everything ourselves? And also, companies are very interested in effort. How much effort actually is required from their teams to actually run the system day to day and to provide a good ESG reporting. And something very close to me, because actually I have in past times I was an auditor, how to ensure auditability. So quite a big list of questions that sometimes appear with the first meeting.
Indeed, a good variety of different questions and different topics. I smiled a little bit when you said how can we automate data collection, because it's a big challenge. What do clients typically ask here in this department? Can you elaborate a little bit deeper on this one?
Yeah, I think that all of us here know that data collection is a real big challenge and is the toughest part. So fancy dashboards and targets are great, but without reliable data, they are actually useless. So clients often ask, can we integrate our ESG systems with what we already have? So the best platforms pull data from ERP, CRM, warehouses, some IoT meters into a single hub. But to get there, we need a deep discussion, a deep understanding of the processes that are inside company, to map processes, to design a flow that actually fits the organization. So once it's in place, it's a strong foundation for scaling all aspects of ESG. So I will also give an example. I know that you know it quite well. A logistic company integrated its GPS and fuel data with an ESG system to actually automate carbon tracking, and they eliminate manual entry and actually as an effect improve the accuracy of data, of reported data.
So one of the difficult elements of the ESG reporting is scope 3 emissions reporting. That's the hardest one I see.
Yeah, exactly. The scope 3 emissions, all emissions that comes from supply chain, is a big challenge for companies to calculate, and companies often ask, can the system really help with scope 3? And leading platforms provide this capability by vetted emission factors, templates, and even digital supplier portals. So suppliers can input standardized data. This reduces the chaos of fragmented requests, but actually the real challenge is not the tool. It's building the right process around the tool, so that this process, for example, will be aligned with standards like GHG protocol, and then, for example, it will also be aligned with regulatory requirements. Again, here advisory is a key, and technology alone won't solve it.
It's interesting that you mentioned building the right process around reporting and also collecting data. In the world of automation, there is this saying that I heard a couple of years ago, that we don't want to automate bad processes. So having a good process is really key. And it shows that it's both about, of course, technology. We talk about the ESG systems today, so some technology tools to handle the challenge, but it's also about the maturity of the organization and maturity of the processes. Some of those processes need to be built from scratch, but both elements are important.
Yeah. And not every company has the same ESG maturity. Sometimes we have a company that are on the beginning of the journey, and actually we build the processes with them. Some want flexibility and control. For example, a system that acts like a blank page, blank canvas, where they can build their own KPIs, models, workflows. And that works well if the company has a really strong ESG team and they are very conscious about the ESG matters in the organization. But there are some organizations that don't have that capacity, and they prefer systems with ready-made models, predefined emission factors, and dashboards, so they can get value quickly without investing heavily in ESG expertise.
So, in short, choosing an ESG systems is not just a technology choice. It's about aligning the tool with companies' maturity, resources, strategic goals. This system has to be well designed and well selected for those elements.
Yeah, exactly. So the key is that the system has to fit the organization and not the other way around.
All right. So, Wojtek, to summarize our discussion today, we may say that ESG systems are no longer just a tool to assure compliance. These are the systems that ensure data quality, auditability. They need to be reliable, but it's more than that, because they help companies make better strategic decisions, not only related with the ESG KPIs, but also other KPIs, financial decisions as well. And at the same time, we need to say that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Yeah. Companies need to choose systems that match their ESG maturity and resources.
Yeah, that's exactly the takeaway. And the organizations that view ESG systems as a part of their long-term strategy, not just as a reporting burden, will get the most value out of them. For example, for this operational efficiency. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Wojtek. Okay, so let's move into Q&A. Feel free to shoot questions in chat or in the Q&A section. I think we have one question in the chat section. Will you be showing any specific ESG reporting systems, or this is just an awareness session on ESG reporting?
Yeah, actually, this is quite today on this webinar. It is only an aware session on ESG reporting when it comes to using the ESG systems, but with some other webinars with the cycle that we have, we will also show some other ESG reporting systems as well. But we are mostly neutral. We're trying to be neutral to show you the perspective of all ESG systems that are available on the market.
Yes. The one thought that I have, and perhaps there will be an occasion to talk about it in details. There is a company we work with, and they created some custom-made solution, and they asked us if we can do a research and check for some specific functionalities in the systems available on the market. So who knows? Maybe we will discuss the details of this research in the future. Okay, so we have another question. What frequency of aggregation of ESG data is the most recommendable?
It's a really nice question. Actually, I will answer it in the way it depends on what is available in the organization. So, for example, when there is a data available in the organization that comes with like on the monthly basis, it's really nice to have it a comparison on the monthly basis for the purpose of analytics. But actually nowadays I see that when there is a regulation that we have to report like quarterly or yearly, companies are mostly referred to the quarterly and yearly reporting.
I would add one more thought to this answer, that it's a common question in the data world. When you create a system, or when you build a system that is used for business intelligence systems to make strategic decisions, it's a valid question whenever we create such systems, because you need to answer the question: do you want to simply fulfill the requirements, the regulatory compliance, or, as we discussed today, do you want to use the system to make strategic decisions? If you want to make strategic decisions, or maybe even some operational decisions, the data need to be more granular. You want to see the updates in data more often. So I would say there is no one recommendation. As Wojtek said, from the regulatory standpoint, perhaps once a quarter will be fine. But if you want to use the systems to be a little bit deeper, the frequency will be perhaps higher.
All right, we invite you to ask questions.
Thank you, Marcelina, for your question. Good one. All right. Well, I think, Wojtek, we can say that you can always reach us via LinkedIn or just visit cloudsonmars.com website. There is plenty of ways to contact both Wojtek and myself, and also other experts from our company. Thank you, Wojtek, for answering those questions. And before we close, let's look ahead. Today's webinar was about what companies are really looking for in ESG systems. And in our next session, we will dive into the types of ESG solutions available. So this refers to the question that was asked today as well. We will think how to compare off-the-shelf solutions with the tailored custom-made solutions. Each approach has pros and cons, and we'll explore which type fits which organization.
Yeah, and we will bring also some examples from real implementations to show how companies make those choices in practice.
Great. With that, I want to thank you, Wojtek, and thank you all who joined us today. Wojtek, thank you for sharing your insights, and thank you for our meeting today. We are looking forward to seeing you at our next session. Feel warmly invited, and stay tuned with our LinkedIn profile and our website. You will learn about next sessions there.
Yeah, and on the website there is also a blog. On our website there is also a blog section where you can see our articles regarding the ESG systems implementations. So I also recommend you to see it through. And thank you, Marcin, and thanks everyone for your time, and keep in touch. See you next time.
Thank you. See you next time.